What happens when a royal scandal meets a razor-sharp interviewer in front of millions? Tonight, you're about to witness the beginning of an unforgettable clash between Meghan Markle and Piers Morgan, an interview that started politely and ended in chaos. By the end of this segment, the audience squirmed in their seats, and Piers Morgan faced the toughest decision of his broadcasting career. The studio lights glared like 1,000 watchful eyes, bathing the set in an artificial glow that matched the tension hanging in the air. The familiar theme music faded, and the camera zoomed in on Piers Morgan, who adjusted his tie with quiet authority and offered his signature smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back," he began smoothly, polite but firm. "Tonight, I'm joined by Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, or as she now prefers, Meghan, independent entrepreneur and advocate." The audience applauded dutifully, though a few exchanged wary glances. Meghan entered from stage left, her white silk blouse catching the lights just enough to shimmer beneath a perfectly tailored black blazer. She walked confidently to her seat, her smile small and calculated, as if she already knew something no one else did. Piers stood to greet her. "Thank you for being here." "Of course," she replied, taking her seat and crossing her legs delicately. "Happy to clarify some things. It seems people are always confused about me." Her calm tone carried a faint sneer, hinting at what was to come. Piers chuckled lightly. "Let's see if we can clear that confusion tonight. Then, let me begin with what everyone wants to know. Your departure from the royal family. Do you regret leaving? Or was it inevitable?" Meghan tilted her head, blinking slowly, as if bored by the question. "Well," she said coolly, "if you'd been paying attention, you'd know I left because I had better things to do than play dress-up for the tabloids." A ripple ran through the audience's muffled gasps. Some nervous laughter. Piers kept his composure. "So, you feel the monarchy was simply a spectacle, then? Not a duty?" "I think playing dress-up and waving from a balcony is hardly what I'd call duty," she said, lips curving into a faint smirk. He nodded, jotting notes. "And yet, the monarchy has existed for centuries, upheld by people who see it as more than theatrics. Do you think those who stayed, like William and Kate, are wasting their lives?" "Not my problem," Meghan said, adjusting her cuff. "If they enjoy it, good for them. Some people thrive on irrelevance." A louder murmur spread through the audience. Piers kept his voice steady. "And yet, Meghan, you benefited from that same irrelevance when you married into it. Do you think you owe it any respect?" Meghan laughed lightly, though it sounded rehearsed. "Oh, please. I gave them a splash of relevance. I brought color. Literally and metaphorically." More gasps. Piers merely raised an eyebrow. "Well," he said finally, "you are certainly not shy about your opinions. Let's move to another point. Your current relationship with the press. Many feel you court publicity when it benefits you and decry it when it doesn't. How would you respond?" "I'd say," she began, leaning forward, "that people like you need to learn the difference between privacy and secrecy. But then again, if you understood that, you wouldn't have made a career out of pestering people." The jab landed. Even some audience members flinched. Piers only smiled faintly. "If that's how you feel, Meghan," he said calmly, "then this is going to be a fascinating evening." Already, the temperature in the room was rising. When tension simmers just below the surface, it's only a matter of time before the mask slips. Tonight, Meghan Markle's poised exterior begins to crack under Piers Morgan's unflinching questions. By the end of the segment, it wasn't just Meghan who looked uncomfortable. The audience shifted in their seats, unsure whether to clap, gasp, or leave. The cameras rolled as Meghan adjusted the lapel of her black blazer, her smile growing tighter by the minute. Her white blouse glimmered under the studio lights, but her expression betrayed irritation she could no longer hide. Piers leaned back in his chair, flipping through his notes with deliberate care. "Let's talk about Harry," he began softly, eyes locked on hers with quiet determination. "You and Prince Harry's relationship has been the subject of worldwide fascination. Many feel he has changed significantly since meeting you. Some even say he's distanced himself from his family because of you. How do you respond to that?" Meghan's eyes narrowed just a fraction. voice syrupy sweet. Oh, Piers, I'm sorry you're so invested in someone else's marriage. Are you happy at home? Do you even have a wife? The audience collectively inhaled. Piers kept his composure, smiling faintly. Happily married, thank you, but we're here to talk about you and Harry, not me. Of course you are, she replied coolly, because people like you need a villain to keep your ratings up. How quaint. Ignoring the jab, Piers pressed on. Many real watchers say Harry has become more isolated, angrier, more, for lack of a better word, withdrawn since leaving the UK. Do you feel any responsibility for that? Meghan let out a short, cutting laugh. Oh, you really believe everything you read in the tabloids, don't you? He's happier than he's ever been. I'm sorry if that ruins your narrative. A ripple of uneasy chuckles ran through the crowd. Piers tilted his head, voice still measured. So, no regrets, no second thoughts about how it's impacted his relationship with his brother, his father, the institution that shaped him. None. Meghan snapped, tone sharper now. I don't lie awake at night worrying about people who wouldn't lift a finger when I needed them. Is that clear enough for you? Even Piers raised an eyebrow at her tone, but he didn't waver. Crystal, let's move on then. Your work with charities. Some have accused you of using these causes as photo opportunities rather than sincere efforts. How would you respond to that criticism? She uncrossed and recrossed her legs, leaning back with a smirk. Oh, that's rich. People criticize me if I don't show up, then accuse me of vanity if I do. You really can't win when you're me. Piers nodded slowly. Some might say that's the price of being a public figure. Scrutiny comes with the territory. And some might say, Meghan cut in icily, that you wouldn't know sincerity if it bit you. Piers interrupted gently. Please, this is a family show. More gasps and awkward giggles came from the audience. Meghan waved a dismissive hand, her painted smile returning. Fine. Let's keep pretending this is civil. Piers smiled faintly at her choice of words, but continued. You've also said before that the royal family was cold to you. Distant, even cruel at times. But several staffers off the record, of course, have described you as difficult, demanding, even manipulative. How would you respond to those accusations? Her smile vanished completely, replaced by a flash of anger. I'd say those staffers should grow a spine and say it to my face instead of hiding behind anonymity cowards. The lot of them. Even the camera operators hesitated slightly as they framed the shot, sensing the air thickening with hostility. Yet Piers pressed. There's a consistent pattern in what they say. Could they all be wrong? They're bitter, because I dared to speak my mind. Meghan shot back. Because I wouldn't just nod and smile like a good little Duchess while they whispered about me in hallways. For the first time, Piers leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. Do you feel you ever made mistakes? That you could have handled things differently? Meghan blinked slowly, tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, sure. My mistake was ever thinking this family, this institution, or people like you could be decent. An audible gasp came from the front row. But Piers didn't flinch. He straightened his notes calmly, letting her words linger in the air. Meghan, he said finally, voice even, you've made it clear what you think of the royal family, the press, and apparently me. But I have to ask, do you even care what the public thinks anymore? Or is it all just about you now? Her lips curled into a thin, defiant smile. I care about what matters in public opinion. Frankly, Piers, it doesn't matter. The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few nervous laughs peppered the silence. Piers sat back, hands clasped calmly on his lap, though his jaw tightened slightly. Well, he said softly, thank you for your honesty. If nothing else, it's illuminating. The cameras cut briefly to commercial, but even then the tension in the studio was palpable. The audience wasn't just uneasy, they were squirming. Meghan Markle's thin veneer of charm was slipping fast, and Piers Morgan, though composed, was clearly nearing his limit. As the minutes dragged on, the tension turned electric. What began as an interview was devolving into a battlefield of pride and ego. When the cameras returned, Meghan sat stiffly on her side of the stage, still in her crisp white blouse and tailored black blazer, arms now crossed, her jaw tight, her eyes flicking away from Piers as he shuffled his notes with deliberate calm. The air in the studio had shifted colder, heavier. Even the audience seemed quieter, unsure whether to keep clapping between segments. Piers looked up, trademark smile tight and professional, but his eyes betrayed a certain resolve. "Welcome back," he began smoothly, voice measured as ever. "We're here with Meghan Markle, discussing her journey, her work, and her views on, well, nearly everything." Meghan exhaled through her nose, lips forming a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover," she said flatly. "Oh, I wouldn't say that," Piers replied lightly. "We've only just begun." A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the audience. Piers leaned slightly forward. "Let's talk about your departure from the royal family. You said before that you felt trapped, stifled, unprotected. Do you believe the monarchy itself is fundamentally flawed?" Meghan uncrossed her legs, leaning back with a dry laugh. "You really can't help yourself, can you? Always digging, always trying to find fault." Piers tilted his head, unfazed. "It's a question, Meghan, not a fault. Do you believe the monarchy is flawed?" Her eyes flashed as she rolled them dramatically. "I believe the monarchy is outdated. It's a relic, and I chose not to let it destroy me the way it's destroyed so many others. That clear enough for you?" The audience stirred, whispering, glancing nervously at one another. Piers nodded slowly. "Crystal, but do you ever consider that perhaps, just perhaps, the problem wasn't entirely the institution, but how you approached it?" Meghan's laugh this time was sharp. "Oh, of course. Blame the woman. How original." "I didn't say blame," Piers countered calmly. "I said, consider. Do you take any responsibility for how things unfolded?" Her smirk returned, colder now. "I take responsibility for putting myself first for once in my life. Something you and apparently half of Britain seem to have a real problem with." More shifting in the audience. The tension was palpable. Piers pressed on undeterred. "Let's move on to your media ventures, the podcast, the Netflix deals, the children's book. Some critics say it seems more like a personal rebrand than meaningful work. How would you respond?" Meghan's eyebrows arched high. "Well, Piers, critics always have something to say, don't they? When I was silent, I was a coward. When I spoke up, I was calculating. Maybe the problem isn't me, but people like you who can't stand a woman in control." Piers folded his hands, calm but eyes sharper now. "Or perhaps," he said quietly, "the problem is when someone confuses control with entitlement." "Do you think your critics might have a point?" Her laugh was bitter. "You'd love that, wouldn't you? If I just admitted I was the villain you've always wanted me to be." "Sorry to disappoint you." A faint murmur of discomfort swept through the audience. Even the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Piers kept his gaze steady. "It's not about villains and heroes. It's about choices and consequences." Meghan leaned forward, tone opally mocking. "Oh, thank you, Piers. Enlighten me about consequences, because clearly, you're the expert on public relations disasters." A few awkward laughs came from the back of the audience, but most were stone silent. Piers smiled thinly. "I've certainly had my share. But unlike you, I've never tried to play the victim while cashing in on the role." That line hit hard. Meghan's eyes narrowed to slits. "Wow," she said, voice low and dripping with disdain. "You really think you've got me all figured out, don't you? The bitter old man with his little TV show finally gets his chance to take down the Duchess." "That's not what this is," Piers said firmly. Jaw set. "Really?" Meghan scoffed, throwing up her hands. "Because it sure feels like a witch hunt to me. Maybe next you'll ask if I float when you throw me in the river." The audience gasped audibly, and Piers actually blinked at her audacity. He took a long breath before speaking again, quiet but steel-laced. "You know," he said evenly, "I came into this interview hoping to have an honest conversation about the choices you've made, the legacy you're building. But it was becoming increasingly clear that you're not interested in honesty." "Meghan, just in playing the same tired game of deflect and insult?" Meghan smirked, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, spare me the self-righteous lecture." You're just mad I'm not crying into your shoulder like the rest of your guests." The audience was dead silent. The temperature in the room had dropped noticeably. The camera zoomed in on Piers as he sat perfectly still, fingers tapping once on the desk. "Well," he said finally, voice deceptively calm, "I think we've given you plenty of time to show the world who you really are, and you haven't disappointed." Meghan arched an eyebrow, leaning back, clearly pleased with herself. Piers offered the faintest of smiles. "Let's take another break," he said quietly. The cameras cut to commercial, but not before capturing the glint of something dangerous in his eyes. When the feed returned, the studio was thick with tension, like a storm cloud about to burst. Meghan sat with arms folded defiantly. Piers, though outwardly composed, had fire in his eyes. What started as a high-profile interview had turned into a slow-motion implosion no one would forget. The red light on the camera blinked back to life. The audience, still hushed, offered a half-hearted round of applause. Meghan sat rigid in her chair, adjusting the sleeves of her crisp white blouse under her black blazer. Chin held high, Piers leaned slightly forward, hands folded neatly on the desk. His trademark smile was gone, replaced by a taut line. "Welcome back," he said evenly, though his voice carried weight, signaling this segment would be different. "We're here with Meghan Markle, though it seems the conversation we hope to have tonight has taken quite a turn." Meghan rolled her eyes so dramatically a few audience members gasped. "Oh, don't act surprised, Piers," she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is exactly the kind of gotcha spectacle you live for, isn't it?" Piers cocked his head. "Actually, Meghan, what I live for is asking real questions and getting real answers, something you seem determined not to give." Her lips curved into a smug smile. "Maybe that's because your questions aren't worth answering." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. Another muttered, "Wow," under their breath. Piers took a steadying breath. "All right, let's try one more time. Earlier, you said you left the royal family because you were trapped and stifled. Fine, but do you ever reflect on the fact that you knew or should have known what you were walking into? Do you take any responsibility for that choice?" Meghan gave a dry laugh. "Ah yes, the classic blame the woman narrative. She should have known her place. How original." "This isn't about place," Piers said firmly, leaning in. "This is about accountability." "Do you take any?" "I take accountability for not letting that institution destroy me." She shot back. "Does that count?" murmured the audience. Some looked at her with admiration. Others, visibly uncomfortable, Piers pressed his lips together and nodded slightly. "Very well. And what about Harry? Many say he's not the man he used to be, that he's cut ties with friends, family, his country, because of your influence. Do you feel any remorse for how isolated he's become?" Meghan's smirk froze momentarily. Her eyes hardened. "Oh, please. Harry made his own choices. He's a grown man, not some puppet on my strings." "But of course, you'd assume otherwise. Anything to paint me as the wicked witch." "That's not what I said," Piers replied sharply. "But you seem awfully defensive about it." She leaned forward, voice low and mocking. "Defensive, that? No, Piers, I just don't feel the need to sit here and justify my marriage to you of all people." "Are you jealous? Is that what this is about?" Audible gasps filled the studio. Even Piers's eyes widened briefly at the audacity. He straightened in his chair, fingers drumming once on the desk. "I think we're done here," he said quietly. Meghan tilted her head, clearly enjoying herself. "Oh, what happened to your tough questions? Run out of steam?" The audience fell completely silent. Even the cameraman froze. "No," he said, voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. "What I've run out of is patience." Meghan's smirk faded, replaced by a faint look of surprise. "You came here," he continued, calm but steel-laced, "with a chance to tell your story, to answer the questions millions of people have about the choices you've made. Instead, you've spent the past hour being smug, dismissive, and, quite frankly, insulting not just to me, but to everyone watching." Meghan opened her mouth, but Piers held up a hand. "Save it," he said sharply. "I've interviewed prime ministers, presidents, and actual royalty people who disagreed with me, yet still managed to answer questions like adults. But you, he shook his head, you've mistaken this studio for your Instagram page, thinking you can control every word, every angle, every narrative. The audience was dead silent, eyes fixed on the confrontation. You want to play victim? Fine. You want to play the misunderstood hero? Be my guest but not on my show, he continued, voice rising just enough to carry across the room. I will not sit here and let you insult my profession, my audience, and my intelligence any longer. You can leave now. The words hung in the air like thunder. Meghan's eyes flashed. For a moment, it seemed she might argue, but instead, she gave a dry laugh, unhooked her microphone, and stood. Well, she said coolly, adjusting her blazer. At least now everyone's seen the real Piers Morgan bitter. Small, predictable, and now, Piers replied without missing a beat. They've seen the real Meghan Markle arrogant, entitled, and worst of all, boring. The audience collectively gasped. Meghan's lips tightened into a thin line. Without another word, she turned on her heel, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she strode toward the exit. The cameras followed her until she disappeared behind the curtain. The sound of the studio door closing echoed like a final curtain drop. Piers adjusted his tie, sat back, and looked straight into the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice perfectly calm again, I believe that just about sums it up. We'll be back after the break. The studio erupted into stunned applause as the screen faded to black. What do you think? Did Piers go too far? Or was Meghan's attitude her own undoing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this incredible moment and want more stories like it, hit that like button and subscribe for dramatic behind-the-scenes showdowns, exclusive interviews, and the stories nobody else dares to tell. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next big moment. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. **